Now, Peter Shanley, you got involved in the arts here in Westport.
I did. It wasn't enough to be in the Chamber of Commerce. I had to get involved in the arts as well, and there has to be equality in life as well. So, a group of us, we took over the old arts committee, and Michael Murphy, Liam Lyons, Kitty O'Malley, and myself originally, and then Keiko and Patrick Percival and a couple more joined us, and we were there for 13 years, and we were there during the tough old years again in the 80s, and our philosophy was that we would try and bring to Westport what wasn't available in Westport already. And we decided that we were obviously going to be catering for a minority group of people with minority tastes, and so as a result we focused very clearly on classical music, lectures, art exhibitions, and various other presentations. And so we had very small budget, and all we ran the festival. We might have an evening of film, of jazz, of music, classical music, a string quartet, or an opera singer, and we managed to persuade Lord Altamont to give us the use of Westport House. We got Holy Trinity Church, and then we went into the various hotels for venues for the various events. And our audience would have been at most probably 100 people max, and might have been from 10, 20, 30, 40 people. And we had excellent speakers, and we had Eric Cross come in to us, and Benedict Kiley, one of our first speakers. And we had the Night of Glyn here, and we had various artists. We had Professor John Lewis, who gave us a talk. He lived here. And then we had the Vanbrugh String Quartet, who came to us from RTE, and we ran it on a basis where each of us would take over a particular night or event. And so if a particular group were coming to Westport, or speaker, whoever it was, that would be, let's say, my responsibility to take over the Vanbrugh Quartet, and I would have to arrange their travel to Westport. We would have to rendezvous. I would have to rendezvous with them, arrange their accommodation, their food, make sure the venue was right, and we all took on that basis. And so all of us provided the accommodation and the food individually. So cut the hotel bills down and cut the cost down enormously. And we were running on a tiny budget. Unfortunately, we managed to run a very quality series of events every year for about roughly 13 years. We were in existence before we handed over to a new incoming committee.
And you created an environment for it. Did you think you promoted classical music in Westport?
We do. We think we brought a lot of classical music to Westport that would otherwise never have come here. And a lot of people were exposed to music then and never would have experienced for instance, the Vanbrugh String Quartet, who are world class, won world competitions worldwide. We had
John O'Connor here, was he?
with John O'Connor, and he actually stayed here in our house. And we definitely we had opera singers, and we had individual violinists. The piano was our biggest problem, of course. We didn't have a piano up to the standard of an international pianist. So we would have Michael Murphy and Liam and I would have to go up often to Mullingar to collect a piano and drive it to Westport in the back of Tom Carter's cattle trailer, and clean it up, have it tuned and put in place, whether it was in Westport House or Holy Trinity, and then drive it back the next day to where we collected it. So there was a lot of work in it, collecting chairs in the Castle Court, borrowing chairs, stacking them, cleaning. We did all of that hands-on, and we brought a lot of culture, a lot of, particularly the music, to Westport that wouldn't otherwise be available.
All part of the cooperation that occurred in Westport.
What I also have to say, in fairness, is the business community came in behind us. We got fantastic support. The most extravagant group we ever had here were the Jujuka. They were a group of drummers from the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. And if my memory serves me right, I think they came here to the Kilkenny Arts Festival. And then they were available to be picked up by other arts festivals. Well, we jumped on it, and the 40 of these men from the Atlas Mountains arrived in full native dress, and by coach, of course. And they would only eat meat which had been killed under the halal ceremony, which is special religious rite over meat, and of course had to be lamb. So we drove up to Halal in Ballyhonus, and Liam Lyons, who knew the owner, I think Rashif, and he actually contributed us with a full sheep, which had been killed under the halal rites, and to feed the 40 performers after their concert. In the afternoon, they went round the town playing their drums and singing in Arabic, wonderfully colourful, and it was just extraordinary, the cultural contrast back in the 80s in Westport, to see these guys walking around Westport singing and playing their drums. And then they played in the Westport Woods, and we had a full house actually. We had to turn people away, there were so many people there. It was extraordinary how people decide what they want to attend or what they don't want to attend. And that was proof of it. And they sat in a circle, and we sat around them. And then they played their drums and they sang. And then they had a dancer, but they were no women, of course. There was a boy. And of course it would be frowned on today, probably. A young boy with these guys, or I think there were two boys, who did the belly dancing, so to speak. And then they went down to Westport House, and they were in the farmhouse, and they slept in the crouch position, sitting up against the wall, and they pulled their shrouds, hoods over their heads, their Arabic dress, and they slept as they would in the desert or in the Atlas Mountains.
All
and of course,
40?
having eaten their halal lamb.
All 40 together? All
40 in a group.
Yeah.
Yeah. They travelled together, they slept together, they played together. That was an extraordinarily successful and playful event. The other thing was we brought a lot of very good plays here. The theatre was very popular. And sadly, sometimes people would only attend the theatre depending on who the group were playing. Usually we brought the Druid here once, and my God, there was a queue outside the door before we even opened the door. So, but we brought events and culture to Westport that would never ever have come here before. No question about it. It was a very interesting and for us as the members of the committee, it was incredibly rewarding, because we got to meet these people and sit down and talk to them, and always after every event we would go back to each other's houses, and everybody would come back, all the performers and various friends, and we'd sit around talking, have a glass of wine, and then next day was hands on deck and back at it again. And of course we had to do our own day's work. We had to go back and run our businesses and do whatever we had to do.
That's what make communities work, isn't it?
That's it, exactly. You roll your sleeves up, you get down to it, and you muck in, and you sweep the floor, you stack the chairs, and you stand at the door, you collect the money, and you drive the guy to the station, and you just do it. It doesn't work any other way as well as that. It goes back to I was saying when I was talking about the business, you can't beat the hands-on. Start off behind the counter and learn how to deal with people. That's the most important thing.